passion for adventure brings her feet to places she never thought she'd be in. At age 24, Mikka Wee considers herself the tiny traveler who marvels at the thought of seeing and experiencing something new. And she joins us here today to share her travel experiences, jitters, and some tips like how to travel on a budget. Good morning, Mikka. Welcome to Daybreak.
Thanks for having me over.
Now, first of all, how many cities locally and internationally have you been to?
Well, I was trying to count a while ago, but I think it would average around 25 to 30.
Okay.
Or maybe more or less.
25 or 30 at the age of 24. So what age did you start traveling?
I started traveling when I was 4 years old. My grandpa would bring me to Hong Kong and China all the time. And I think my first legit brush with culture was when I got lost in Hong Kong. And I was crying and I was like, I can't find my grandma, I can't find my grandma.
How old were you then?
4 years old.
4 years old?
Yeah, and then I saw an old lady and we tried to communicate in broken English. And she eventually helped me find my grandma. And I thought it was pretty cool because we come from different backgrounds, but then we get to connect still, right? So I thought it was pretty amazing.
What do you find to be the most exciting part of your travels?
It's the stories for me. I really like talking to the locals, despite the language barrier. It's nice to know like how they were brought up, how their culture is so different from the Philippines, and like I met this guy in, I went to Myanmar recently and I went to one of the pagodas there, and there was a guy in the monastery who just talked to me, and I asked him about where he came from, which province of Myanmar, and then it was a really good conversation because you get to know things beyond what they seem to be. So there's a deeper story always, and that's what keeps me excited. You're
very curious. You'll talk to the people and get their stories.
Yeah.
You might as well put them on camera and get the story and send the story over to Daybreak.
Sure, I'd love to.
We love good stories of people. Now, I heard that a cartoon character, Rin Tin Tin, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this character, but he influenced you somehow when you were growing up. So how is that connected to all the travel adventure that you've had?
Okay, because when I was a kid, I wasn't raised as a girly girl. Like, I didn't watch Gem and the Holograms, and I didn't play with Barbies. I was that kind of person.
Okay.
So whenever I'd go home from school, I'd watch Arthur or Little Lulu and The Adventures of Tintin. And it always fascinated me how he looked so young, but he was able to like walk on the moon, fly an airplane all by himself. So that was pretty interesting because, hey, I want to do that too. So growing up, he was one of the biggest influences.
Yeah. And I know that this weekend you will have like a Rin Tin Tin tour in Fully Booked.
Yeah,
what's that
I'm
about?
not the one heading it, but it's pretty amazing because the Tintin store just opened recently in Fully Booked, and it's nice because the only Tintin store, the Tintin shop I've been to was in Singapore, and when I saw it, I was like, hey, I wish they bring it to Manila, and they did. So the lovely people of Fully Booked, during the launch, they invited me, and they conducted this tour about Tintin. So the history and like how Hergé just brought him to life, like his adventures and the styles he used and the different countries he's been to, because there's a story also behind like each comic. So it's pretty cool.
So for those of you who grew up with Rin Tin Tin, or who have kids and you want to take them somewhere this weekend, I think the Rin Tin Tin shop at Fully Booked would be a great idea.
We'll be
it's nice to expose them to these books and characters, right? Now, many people say that when you travel, people tend to spend so much money. Do you have some budget or budget tips for people who travel?
Yes. Okay, because at my age, I often get asked like, why is your bag so ugly? I mean, I don't spend much on like designer bags and designer shoes and designer watches. So what I do when I have money is I book a ticket. Like I am always on the hunt for seat sales because you can get really big discounts. Like we were able to book a flight from Manila to Thailand back and forth for only 4,000 pesos. So people have this misconception that traveling is so expensive because maybe a lot of people talk about it in such a luxurious way. But if you know how to like
look for good deals.
Yeah, good deals. And also backpacking. Like a lot of people like checking in their luggage, but it saves you a lot of money if you just bring one backpack. And
One backpack, okay. Oh yeah, because it's less money when you book your ticket.
And then for lodging, not a lot of people will agree with this because there are a lot of safety issues concerned, but I really like staying in hostels because it's really cheap. Like you get, and you're just going to stay there for like a night. So why do you need like a super fancy room?
A hostel.
That's how I think about it. So I book the cheapest rooms in hostels.
Okay, good. Now you have a bucket list.
Yes.
And one of the bucket lists, I mean, one of the things that you wrote on your bucket list was to be able to travel by yourself or alone.
Yes.
And you've crossed that one out.
Yeah.
So how was that like? Where did you go?
Oh, I went to Hong Kong just because I was already familiar with the landscape and I didn't want to make my mom panic. So it was pretty cool because I felt so independent. Like it was my first time being alone in an airport, riding the bus from the airport to the city and knowing which stop to get out of, because in Hong Kong, there's so many streets and roads, and it's easily confusing if you're not familiar. So I almost missed my stop actually, and then I stayed in a hostel, which I researched about, and it was pretty safe. But I stayed in a room with like 20 other people from different countries.
So what kind of traveler are you? Do you sort of mingle with the locals or with other foreigners that visit the country, or do you look with other fellow Filipinos in the country?
I do a bit of both, like the mingling with the locals and with the foreigners also. But as much as possible, I like talking to the locals more, especially if I know that they can speak English.
Right.
Whenever I'm in a different country, even with what I eat, it's so important because I think food is something that is so identifying of a country's culture. So whenever I'm in a country, let's say Thailand, I don't want to eat steak. I don't want to eat anything Western. I'll always stick to the country's specialty because it says a lot about their culture and the people who worked hard to prepare that food.
Right. Now, what is your favorite spot here in the Philippines?
Oh, I love La Union. I recently learned how to surf last year, and then going to La Union, it's always so peaceful there. Not a lot of people go for now, and the community is good. It has a very artistic community, and the ocean is just super peaceful, and it has like some of the best sunsets that I've seen. So I usually just roll out my mat and just sit down and just write or think. And
right, and it's budget friendly because you don't have to fly there. You just drive there or take a bus. And then also, lastly, tell me about the advocacy that you were earlier talking to me about, the team of the group of people that you're with.
I'm part of this advocacy called the Better Story Project. So it's a female empowerment group, and we want to let women know their value also because, well, there's a bit of gender equality happening wherever, right? And we want to remind women that you're valuable and you can make all of your dreams happen. So we give monthly talks on like body image, and then we've had one about passion, and then the one this June was about travel. So really want to push them to be the best version of themselves.
Okay, great. So travel is part of women empowerment.
Yeah.
To be independent.
Yes, exactly. Because
just enjoy it.
A lot of people
embrace that freedom and go experience the world, as to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for chatting with us this morning.
Thanks,
so Mikka.
Much.
And that was our guest, Mikka Wee, with us here on Daybreak.